Chapter 34. Turmoil in the Realm.
The craft appeared suddenly on the dark side of Delta 4b as it came out of light speed. Centran had programmed the jump exit point even closer to the planet than they'd done on their approach to Tranor. Close proximity to the dark zone suited expedience and avoiding detection. Centran eased the craft through the atmosphere to the black nothingness on the desert surface. Skimming the sand, he glided towards the twilight sector. He halted the vehicle close to the stream. Both men alighted and ran quickly till they reached it. Then, crossing with a leap, entered the storm water drain's exit. In the aircar pad, they split up. Centran made his way hurriedly to Alpha 1, concerned with the desperation he'd felt from Zack. Zack's unpredictability and heightened rage made it imperative to act fast. He tried not to use his power to move through the crowded skywalk, knowing that Zack wouldn't be that cautious. Perhaps his boldness would act as a diversion. Centran's practiced downcast stare didn't slip as he picked out lookalikes along the route. Expressionless faces that he looked beyond revealed nothing. Fora wasn't there.
Strange,
he thought. The memory crystal was still connected and recording. With a fluid motion, he disconnected the device, placed it under his robe, and left.
Where is Fora?
There was no trace of her presence anywhere, and a knot developed in his stomach. He'd have to search for her later. Quickly, he retraced his way back to the craft. It was better equipped and safer to analyze the memory crystal's data there than at his quarters. As he emerged from the storm water drain and crossed the stream, his attention focused on the device and how he'd retrieve the needed data in the shortest possible time. The craft's interior seemed to welcome him. As he connected the memory device to the computer, he wondered about Fora.
Where in all creation is she?
There was no trace of her at her quarters either. There was nothing. He set parameters to isolate data relating to Venru and Nebulon. Now he included Fora. The idea conjured dreaded notions. All searches turned up nothing. He moved out of his body to check his own quarters. It was occupied by 4 lookalikes. An untidy search had been unsuccessful. Leia had been appalled at the abuse of his apartment and given herself away. She'd been questioned and the waste disposal unit searched. The boy had watched as she was led to a security vehicle and followed at a distance.
This,
thought Centran,
is going to stop.
He severed the link between the lookalike's microprocessor and microwave section. On second thoughts, he rendered the transmitter and receiver useless. Introducing himself to the being housed in the synthetic body, he informed it that monitoring and command input could no longer be forced on it. Although still in a synthetic body, it was now free. The being took a moment to assimilate the new condition. It was totally in command of the artificial body, and no more command impulses were being received. It did, however, receive a request from the being who had freed it.
Take Leia through the air car pad storm water drain to the safety of the space cruiser parked at the stream.
This communication was one with which it would gladly comply. With the memory crystal having turned up nothing, Zentran left the craft, crossed the stream, and climbed to the crest of the rise to peer across the desert at the city. The sight, against the backdrop of twilight, was one he remembered with fondness. He was troubled though, and he felt Zack's anguish as well. There was a surge of energy while he watched. It seemed like lightning, but wasn't. The Alpha 1 building crumbled and started to fall. There was an instantaneous trace of Fora in that moment, but Zack's mental imprint was unmistakable. He didn't take his eyes off the building as it was falling to make sure it was really what he was seeing. It was. Urgency gave rise to disposing of the stormwater drain subterfuge.
This is the sequence.
He thought to himself.
When I traverse the desert,
He strode out across the expanse as he'd promised himself one sequence to do. Zentran could hardly believe what he'd witnessed. Besides the destruction, the sheer magnitude, the force of intention behind the demolition was uncanny. The tragedy of innocent people caught inside. Too many would have lost their lives because of it. He could feel confusion, anguish of the living, as well as the dead and dying. The brief trace of Fora was no longer evident. Only the massive aftermath of Zack's energy remained. The city loomed larger as he approached. No one paid him any attention. They were like frozen dummies, subdued into silence. Only the catastrophe, greater than any had ever envisaged, took charge of their consciousness. Zentran had often imagined what the approach to the city would be like as he walked across the desert. It had never occurred to him that it would be under such a devastating circumstance. The upheaval produced a dreamlike sensation he'd never known. Undoing the situation and its terrible consequences wrestled his attention this way and that. Willing the matter that had been the building back into its former state might be possible, but he didn't have the magnitude of force required to accomplish it. Within the unreality that engulfed him, time had also taken on a strange condition. The turmoil he'd felt in the spiritual realm and his dreamlike approach to the city across the open desert flashed through his consciousness in a distortion of time. Somehow, it was all jumbled together in a single instant.